Well, welcome back to another riding adventure in the wilds of Central Florida here. Today we're going to be headed out of camp and pretty much due west. So on this map, up is north, down south, and west is to the left. And we'll be on a 5-mile ride. I've compressed the video as much as possible, so I got it down to about 36 minutes. But we're going to go out and I'm going to turn in and check on some molasses tubs. I'm going to stop right there and look at one of my stands. Then we're going to head over and look at another member's stand. It was located right on the side of his food plot. And on the map there, you can see kind of the little light colored areas right where we stopped. He's got a 3-acre food plot there. And then we'll head kind of south and down around. And it's all palmetto flats. Right in this area is wooded area, or all woods, big myrtle trees and stuff. And then I'm going to go in and check on another stand I have located along a drainage ditch. All those little kind of reddish colored lines, those are all roads, trails that we can ride on. And then just before we get back to camp here, I'll stop in and take a ride around to our shooting range. And then we'll head back to camp. So with that, enjoy the video. Here we're passing our shooting range, which is a little green building right along the right. And you'll notice along the road a lot of areas along that fence line on the left. And then there'll be some areas along the right side here where it's just bare ground, no grass growing. That's where the wild hogs have come in and rooted it up, looking for bugs or insects of some kind. You can see right there along the road where they really do quite a bit of damage. This is still in January, probably about the second week in January 2015. We've had a really wet winter this year, and in fact I had never seen in February, March time frame so much water standing everywhere. And you can see that area we just drove through was really muddy. They had trappers in here in late summer, I think it was around August, September, trapping wild hogs. And of course they were there at the worst time when it was really wet, and so they really tore up our roads quite a bit driving in and out. So that's why you see it so muddy. Now this time of year, we're into April, where I'm recording the video, posting it, and everything is, I won't say bone dry, but everything is dry now. There's no water standing anywhere. I drive in just a little ways here. I'm actually looking for molasses tubs. During the winter time, the ranch will put out large tubs. They're probably about at least 4 feet in diameter, and they fill them full of molasses for the cattle. And I guess it makes the cattle eat more. While when the molasses is out there, it also attracts the wild hogs. So when they're filling molasses tubs, we'll keep an eye on where the tubs are located. And a lot of times we'll catch the wild hogs. Actually come right in there amongst the cattle. There had been some there weeks previous, and I guess they had removed them, so it relocated them. Now here you can see how bad the roads tore up from the hog trappers that were in here. They rutted it really bad. So it will take quite a while for it to smooth out again. Most of the area we're going to be riding through today looks like what you see. It's all like kind of palmetto flats, and we'll get in some areas where my stand in with where there's some pine trees. And the deer actually seem to love this area, I guess, because if they get spooked, all I gotta do is run 25 yards and lay down, and you never find them.
Clearing on the right there, where I'll park. And then
The little clearing on the right is where I'll usually park my car, and then I'll walk down this road where we're riding down through now. It's alongside of an old fenced-in area. They used to call it 40 acres because I guess, well, they still call it 40 acres, but I guess they had 40 acres fenced off and kind of lanes cleared up and down through it, and they did a lot of bird hunting years ago. Now my stand that I have in this area is right there on the left, and as I swing around you'll be able to see it better. Actually, it's a ladder stand. A local gentleman builds them here, and I took it back to him, and he built a leg kit that goes off the back of it, so I can use it as a ladder stand, or in this case, it's a freestanding, kind of like a tripod stand. This area here is, and out of that stand is where I harvested my first buck on this particular piece of property. It was a nice 8-point, probably weighed about 150 pounds. Yeah, as you can see, it's pretty flat and wide open. Now this area here, where it looks like it's thinned out a little bit, a couple of our members, they primarily like to bird hunt, and they brought a roller chopper out there and pulled it around to these palmettos, kind of chopped it up. And there's a little turtle is in the road, and they would come out here and hunt quail and dove. But this area also was known to be populated with a lot of diamondback rattlesnakes. So they always warned me when I first got on to be sure I wore snake boots when I went out here. And when I come up to this other gentleman's food plot where we're headed to, I'll come right up to a gate and then turn left and go around to a stand. But at that gate, I had my son with me, and we did get about a 5.5-foot diamondback rattlesnake there a year ago.
He's got another road, kind of parallels us off the side. We'll go back that way. He said I could come down and hunt on this if I wanted to.
Yeah, my friend who has this stand back here that we're going to go look at has a food plot for deer, and it's about 3 acres in size. And also inside the food plot, he has a little small fenced-in area with hog panels around it to keep the wild hogs away from it. And he has a feeder there, but he throws a whole kernel of corn out. And it's down in front of his stand, probably 25, 30 yards. And that there's a gate. Right as I walked up to open that gate, a rattlesnake was coiled up on the ground right in front of it. So fortunately I spotted it in time. Now downside of the food plot in this area, it's very close to the reservoir that we have. And when the water gets up a little bit, it'll kind of flood a good portion of his food plot.
Here's quite the stand.
Now this is a stand, and he just put this up last year, and it's quite nice. I mean, it's all enclosed windows, and one problem area that he has is the buzzards and vultures want to sit on top of it, and the raccoons want to climb up there, and they crap all over his little entrance deck that he's got going into it, and you probably see it when we get up here. But they're quite a nuisance. And in the background you can see where his food plot is, and there you can see the mess the raccoons make. It's quite comfortable inside. You got a nice office chair. And there down on the floor, you got a butane heater, and all those windows will flip up. Or if the wind's blowing real hard, you can keep the windows down, keep out of the breeze, especially in the cold weather. Now the camera is inside the blind so that the exposure was focused on the inside, so the outside looks washed off. But that little green thing you can see outside, that's his feeder that he has out in his food plot. And well, I'm kind of pointing, that's part of the reservoir. You can see out there the water in the background. It's about a 3,000 to 4,000 acre reservoir. So we have a fishing lease, and then we have our 8,000 acre hunting lease also that share the same campsite. Yeah, I'm using my Android phone with the GoPro app, and the only way I can tell whether the camera's on and off and point in the right direction, I'll use the Wi-Fi connection with my GoPro. And when I get all set, I can turn it off. So we head off now, and we're going to ride over down to these palmetto flats, through a little woods, through a little drainage ditch, and then out to take a look at my other tripod stand. And this is a different road out. And my friend who has this stand back here has an old Ford pickup truck as a hunting vehicle. And I'm utterly amazed that he gets back in here when you see some of the ruts in the road like along through here, because he doesn't have mud tires on it. All he has is kind of a street-worthy all-terrain tires. It is four-wheel drive, but he manages to get back here. If I saw it wet like this, I would be reluctant to pull my Blazer that has mud tires on it back down through here. But he gets through it somehow. And like I mentioned before, we're in April right now when I'm posting this video, and all this water you see, it's all disappeared. So everything is fairly dry, but all those ruts have been left behind. That's one downside of riding out on the property when it's wet like that, because you'll rut it up and then those ruts will stay there for years afterwards. So I try and avoid them, avoid the roads. And if I'm out in the open pastures, I'll actually drive off the road to help save it for when it does dry up. Now, if we kept going straight on this road we're on right now, we would go right back out to the main road that runs east and west across the property. That's kind of what I'm going to be pointing out. But I'm veering off to the right and headed west again over to where my other stand is. Now, as we go through this little drainage ditch area, I slow down and I point out a small cypress tree right there on the right that bucks have been coming in and rubbing on it. You can see, well, you might not be able to see, but the bark's really peeled right off. And they've been hitting that tree for 2 years in a row now. I remember we had a food plot back in this area. He used to come in on the main road. I actually bush hogged this bypass around that one particular part of his road because it was so muddy to help save it a little bit. Those tufts of brown or kind of really beige looking weeds called broom sage. I guess kind of looks like a broom. And one downside of driving through those, it don't hurt your vehicle, but there's little seed pods on the top of it, and they'll pop off and can tend to clog up your radiator. So a lot of times I'll have to do a little radiator work to get a vacuum in there and suck all that stuff out of it. This stand we're going back, and take a look at right here. I've seen a lot of wildlife out of it. Like deer, turkeys, coyotes, bobcats, otters, and I don't know what all. And of course, there's cows that wander around back in here also.
Their stand is right here. This is just like the other ladder stand we looked at, where they turned it into a freestanding stand by putting a leg kit on it. There we go.
I have this stand kind of pushed back in amongst 2 or 3 pine trees here, and that's what I can see out and look, and it's actually facing a crossing right kind of down in front of us where the wildlife will travel back and forth through, and actually they'll travel right alongside my stand also. And I have sat in it and had deer literally walk underneath me in it while I was in that stand and actually almost rub on the legs of it. So it's kind of an interesting place to set, and I've cleared some little openings so I can see a little bit farther back in the woods and, you know, get a advance warning when something may be showing up in front of me. This is another stand that built by a local individual. Basically, it was a ladder stand that he put rear legs on it for me that can fold up. So it's freestanding, kind of just like a tripod would be. And here I think I'm walking over and looking at that crossing of that little drainage ditch to see if there's any tracks there. But this is right after we had some really high water, so I know that that drainage ditch was just full of water. And it's down now. It'll pretty much have a little bit of water in it year round, but I'm sure it was a good 4 feet or more deep when we had the high water. And I didn't see any tracks in there this particular day.
The water would have been at least waist deep. You can see it was up to the banks. Oh, there's some tracks there, but it looks like raccoons. Alright, well, I'm not going to waste my time in here.
Well, with that, I'll speed things up a little bit, and we'll be making a direct route back to our camp. I'll make a short stop and drive into our shooting range on the way back, so you get a chance to maybe see that, and we'll just enjoy the ride. Now, I didn't break that gate. uh, the hinge that the type of hinge that they had on it screws into the post, and over a period of time, whether the cow is leaning against the gate or whatever, to pull the screw out. But we've now repaired it so it hangs proper. From this point, our property probably runs maybe a mile to the right, and then approximately 2 miles south, as I was pointing out. And here on the left, we're coming up onto our shooting range. So we'll drive in there. Somebody had left our gate open, so I had to go in here and close it anyway. But I thought as long as we're here, we'll just take a look around, and maybe I can point out some things. We've got 2 shooting stations. I built the tables so that if you were left-handed or right-handed, you could still shoot from the tables and have a spotting scope on the opposite side for you. Now, a white jug is we collect all the center fire brass, and I trade it in. I get my ammunition reloaded locally. A lot of different calibers that the guys that bring out here. And those wild hogs out there are tough, and just to give you an idea of some of the calibers, we're talking 7mm, 300 Win Mag, 308, my favorite 30-06, and even a 44 mag. And that old pile of wood right there is just some old plywood that we piled up to be able to cut up and use for backstops for the targets. That whole area there, in that green building, we have a machine that will throw out clay pigeons. It'll do it randomly, up and down, left and right, and somebody can sit back with a foot pedal and trip it, and you don't know when it's going off or where it's going. Now the first target, the little white spot you see on the right, that's at 25 yards. Then further down that little kind of a fenced-in lane, we have a 100-yard target set up. That's for that right straight ahead, where that kind of a pile of dirt is a backstop. Then there's a gate there. And if you went through that gate, open the gate up, there's another berm further back, and that's at 200 yards. And I'm riding back here because I saw some buzzards down on the ground gathered up. I thought it might have been something dead back there, but I couldn't see what they were after. So we got a 25 yard, this is the 100 yards, and then we got a 200 yard. And then there's another small dirt pile near the 200 yard one, and we actually have another shooting shed that sits back, and it's 300 yards. So we're all set up if you want to shoot your rifles for trying to sight in for varmint hunting. And there I think I'm trying to point to that 300 yard shooting shed.
Bring over that one, then you can sight it in at 300 yards. Or let's see what it's doing.
Well, we're about 35 minutes into the video here. If you've stuck with it this long, I thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and leave some comments if you'd like to see more. I have some more video that I need to put together yet for different areas of the property that I'll be exploring. So give me a subscribe, give me a thumbs up and a like if you liked it, and I hope you come back for some of the future videos. And we'll be pulling around storage shed into my camp, which I'm going to say up front is faded red. It is not pink, and I did not paint it that color. So y'all have a good evening.
We are done.